going to get started. There might be a few more people that file in, but hopefully just join us as we are in progress. Today is going to be an overview of SMMware, and we're going to be divided up into 4 separate tracks. We're going to talk about the main track in blue to start talking about clients and sales leads and jobs, how you can enter hours and expenses and create invoices and upload files. The second track in green will be talking about our resource section with organizations and contacts. From there, we'll talk about the calendaring as well as task notes and calls. And then we're going to talk about our integrations with QuickBooks and others. But again, we're going to start here in the blue. And by now, you should see the homepage for SMMware on your screens. If you have questions as we go, feel free to put them into the chat area. I'll be keeping an eye on that as we go and answering anything I see there. All right, so we're going to say that we're going to start by talking about sales leads and assume that somebody has called you for the first time. So we're going to start a new sales lead. Since they are brand new to us, they won't appear in their list of existing entries. We can start a new entry. I'd like to point out that we have these 3 different referred by fields so that you can record the overall category that somebody's come from, that when they refer the business to you, it could be real estate or lawyers or something like that. And then from there, we drill down to the company and to the exact person. We also have custom fields that apply to the client, as well as the ability to pre-fill the existing locations down below. Within SMMware, there are 3 fundamental records to be aware of. We've got our client record, and we also have, for each opportunity, there is a sales lead. And then after you've won the work, it becomes a job. Here in the sales lead, we can say who the lead salesperson is here. We can set a status. The list of statuses is customizable. We have a number of automations. If the customer tells you that they intend to decide somewhere like at the end of the month, you can put that date in, and on that date, someone's going to create a task with a due date that matches that date, and reminders that will send you an email on that date and ahead of time, basically tapping you on the shoulder and asking you to contact this potential client. Another automation we have is for when you submit a quote to them. In this case, you're going to tell SMMware in the configuration how far out you want it to go, but it's going to put in a date that is, say, a week in the future. And it's going to create a task with that due date. It's going to send you emails, once again, reminding you and as I say, tapping you on the shoulder to contact them. Here we also have custom fields that are specific to this opportunity. These are things that change when someone moves from one location to another. And once again, we can pre-fill their new location. This is called the status board notes, and you can set a level or tag for them. You can also customize these tags. Right now, I'm pointing out where you can put the information in. Later on, we will see where that gets used. Now that I've created a sales lead, I can create a quote. Within SMMware, creating a quote is a question of mixing and matching the different kinds of blocks that we provide you. But after a while, you're going to use templates so that you don't have to start from scratch every time. So I just chose one of the templates and it pre-filled a variety of information for me. Here's information about the client. This is a header, so it's just larger, bold text to help visually divide up the quote. And of course, we have our line items, and we have some text blocks. We have a summary block. We have a legal block. In the legal block, we have eSigning, where you basically need to let the system know their name and how you're going to contact them. And we have some shortcuts. These shortcuts mean that you put them into the template, and then when you go into the actual quote, you don't have to cut and paste anything in there. SMMware will fetch that information and insert it for you. And SMMware also has the idea that you may have to give somebody multiple copies of a quote. They may ask for some revisions, so we can copy the quote. Now we're looking at version 2. We have a field here where we can write ourselves a note. This is not going to appear on the quote that the customer sees. This is just for internal purposes. Here's a PDF of what the customer would actually see. This header image would be replaced with something custom to your system. Now's a good time to point out that SMMware has 2 different ways that you can charge your client. The simplest approach uses a single rate across the entire job. And that approach does assume that literally every hour is going to be at that rate. But if you have a more sophisticated setup where you want to charge different rates for different kinds of work, then we have something called job codes. A job code is simply a label and an underlying rate. So that way, when the employees are entering their time, they would simply choose the label for the job code, and behind the scenes, SMMware knows what the rate should be for the purposes of invoicing. We can also email the PDF of the quote to the client. Here's where you can see who it's going to, and you can add more. You can also customize. This default language is set in the configuration, and then you can tweak it here and now. And of course, your system, you can go in and tweak what the defaults are as well. Let me go back to the listing of the sales leads. I'd like to point out that the main menu here across the top, you can think of that as the official structure of SMMware, but we're going to be pointing out various shortcuts along the way, such as this button that lets you create new records. But in terms of how to think about it and the underlying structure, I would think of the main menu. And then everything else is just shortcuts getting you from one spot to another. So here we have a sales report that shows you the different status levels, how many items, how many entries you have for a given status level, their value, the total hours. And we can see that same information based on percentages. And then here's the list of ongoing sales leads. From here, I'm going to jump over and look at one of the jobs. And mainly, I wanted to point out that the records here are pretty much the same as you would see under a sales lead, except that maybe we have a team lead instead of a lead salesperson, and we have the job status instead of the sales lead status. While we're here, I also upload some files just to demonstrate what that's like. You'll notice that these file names are long and cryptic, the kind of thing that a phone might assign. And I'd also like to point out that I can multi-select. In order to change the file names to something more readable, I'm going to click on the auto rename. This is a list of tags. This is going to be assigned to the names of the images. So for instance, if I choose bedroom 3, the photos are going to be named bedroom 3001, bedroom 3002, and so on. You can also write notes. And from here, you can rotate the photo, change the tag, change the name. You can see who uploaded it and when. You can download it again. You can share it and, of course, delete it. And I'd also like to point out that within SMMware, our thinking is that rather than assigning permissions on a image-by-image basis, we have one file manager intended for items that everybody in the company can see. we have a section called the restricted file manager that only admins and maybe salespeople can see. And here's where you would put, say, a contract, something that was signed and scanned, and you wanted to upload it into the system. Here's a status board for the job, along with the different status levels that can be assigned to it. From here, I'm going to start talking about recording your hours and your expenses, but along the way, I'm going to look at an associate profile. And what I'd like to point out here is the idea that SMMware can accommodate different pay levels. These pay levels can be defined. Our simple approach to pay levels can distinguish between somebody who's working as a team lead or a team member and somebody who's working on a weekday versus the weekend. And you can have these 4 different rates assigned. If you want to be fancier than that, you can tie the pay level to the job code. So again, this allows you to pay employees different rates depending on the kind of work they're doing at a given moment. Down below, I'd also like to point out the section on permissions. We have an overarching permission level here from normal user through admin and senior admin and company owner. And here we have more granular permissions for some specific situations, such as HR and scheduling and sales. And the takeaway is that we have a fair number of permissions that you can set in order to tweak things for your situation. And again, I'm going to show you what it's like to enter hours. So here's where you would put in the date, start time and end time. I can type something here in the description field, or I can pick from a predefined list. And once again, that list is something that you can set in the configuration. I can mark this as being billable or not. If I worked at one location in the morning and another in the afternoon, I can click on add a row and take care of that second entry right away, instead of having to complete one entry and then circling back to do the second one. The upper area is where you can add new entries. The lower area is where you can see existing entries. In order to enter time, you can also use our time clock. Since I'm an administrator, I have this drop down where I can switch and manage the hours for people other than myself. If I was a regular user, I would just simply not have that drop down. To enter your expenses, it's very similar. Once again, I have my drop down of other people. But in this case, I also put in the date here and in the job. But in this case, I put in the amount. I have to pick a vendor. And I put in description. Once again, we have some predefined terms. And we can mark it as being billable or not. You can take a photograph of the receipt and upload it along with the expense. These radio buttons indicate not whether the client is going to be billed or needs to be reimbursed. Or your company needs to be reimbursed. This is about whether the employee used a company credit card such that they themselves need to be reimbursed, or if they used a company credit card such that they don't. And once again, we've got the new entries created here and the existing entries down below. From here, I'll take a peek at invoices. Invoices have different status levels. They start off as preliminary, which is a way of telling other people in the company that whatever you do, please don't send this to the client because it's not ready. SMMware also has the idea that the team leads you may want them to approve things since they were there on site. They know which employees were there. They know what kind of work was done. This is an optional feature, so you can jump straight to the approval level if you want to. But otherwise, you might set it to finalized and then have the team lead approve it. Once the invoice is approved, we offer the ability to create PDFs, and we have 3 different formats for those. The simplest one is the summary format. This is intended for occasions where the more detail you provide, the more time you're going to spend going over it with some clients. On the other hand, there are some clients where the more detail that you provide them in the PDF, the more they feel confident that the charges are justified, so they won't argue about it. And then you can quickly move on to the next thing. And in the middle, we've got the idea of a roll-up invoice. Let's say you have a job that lasts a long time, multiple months, and the detailed version starts to look pretty long. This, the detailed version is going to have a line item for every employee who was there that day. And the roll-up version will take all that information and roll it up into one line item saying how many employees were there, total hours for that day. Here you can see the various line items and the totals. We can also email that PDF. And once again, the subject and the content come from the configuration editor, and then you can tweak it for a given situation if you'd like to. All right, so that takes us through our initial blue track. Next, we're going to talk about the resources section, the organizations and contacts. So here in the main menu, we can find the organizations and contacts menu items. The organizations are companies and the contacts are people who work at those companies. There's three kinds of records that you'll put here. You have the traditional vendors where you spend money with them. You also have people where you may not spend money with them, but you recommend them. So for instance, if somebody asks you for a good plumber, you can come to this section and give them the details. The third kind of record that you'll find here are people who refer business to you, such as senior living centers. Let's go and take a look at one of these. Here is the contact for that particular organization. You can have as many contacts as you like. I'm going to jump over and look at their details. And what I'd like to point out here is that you can indicate that this person acts as or they refer business to you. And that information in conjunction with the date of last contact is going to help drive some functionality that helps you keep in touch with the people who send you business. Also here under the contacts, I wanted to point out that you can upload files, you can create tasks, write notes and calls. We're going to go into the details of what those are shortly, but right now I just wanted to point out that this is another place where you can create those records. I'm going to jump back to the company they work for, just to point out that here you can also upload files, create tasks, write notes, and log calls. So the thinking here is that, for instance, if a moving company gives you a certificate of insurance, you can store it here, and you can also create a task that corresponds to when that certificate is going to expire to remind you that you need to get a new one from them. So that is our resources section. From here, we'll move down to talk about task notes, calls, and calendaring. Going to look at a job. I'm going to go down to the bottom section where we can see tasks for this job. Go ahead and create a new task. And what you can see here is that it has a due date. You can set some reminders, priorities. You can assign it to someone. And you can also have secondary assignees. Our thinking is that if we simply assigned everybody to the task at the same level, it would be a case where everybody was in charge, so nobody's in charge. So what we do is we have the primary assignee here and the secondary assignees there, which makes it clear that this person's ultimately responsible for making sure this gets done. And then here we have a summary and a place to write some more extended notes. So here we can see the existing tasks for this job. If they were late, the due date would be in red. And after you've worked with the system a while, you're going to wonder about how you can manage multiple tasks at once. Because at a given phase of the project, you may have the same task that you do every time. And SMMware handles that via something we call task groups. Each one of these buttons represents a group of tasks which you define in the configuration editor. In this case, this group has 1, 2, 3 tasks in it. And if we don't need one, we can remove it. So now we just have the 2. And you can see that the task already has text defined in it. It comes from the settings editor. Next, we'll talk about notes, which are simpler than tasks. Here you simply have a title and the body of the note. This text is coming from the configuration editor. The thinking here is that you're going to indicate to the user exactly what kind of information you want them to enter into this note. But our philosophy is usually that we try to give you a head start or a hint, but that you are not going to be locked into it. So you can erase that text if it's not applicable in this case. When you're looking at the notes, you can see who wrote the note and when. And regular users are not allowed to overwrite each other's notes. So then you can treat this as a history of what has happened across this job. Next, we'll talk about calls. So this is used for both when a call comes in and you want to record what was said. Here you can put in a summary, and you may want to put the phone number they called from, and you can also put in a fuller note. Once again, we have assignees and secondary assignees, which is most important when you are using this for future calls. So if you're not logging a call that is coming in just now, you're trying to plan for a future call, you can put in the date and the time. And in this case, you definitely want the phone number. You want to say if you're calling them or they're calling you. And in this case, you might want to assign the call to somebody and also have some secondary people on the call. All right, from here, we're going to jump to the home page. So this is your, we call it the daily snapshot. It's your dashboard. When we're looking at jobs, I pointed out a place to put the status board note and the tag. The idea here is that it's going to give you your 30,000-foot view of how your company's doing. If it's green, then you can presumably not worry about it. If it's yellow, then you may have to do something soon. And if it's red, then maybe you have to do something before you can call it a day. These tags are defined by you. This is just an example of what we put in the system. I can come in here and modify the note. Can also change the tag. We have a similar status board for sales. For this particular system, we have cold lead, medium lead, hot lead. Once again, you can define those tags, put whatever you want, and we can update the note and the tag from here. The next few sections have to do with tasks. So this one's late, so it is in red for the date. So these are going to be all the tasks that are assigned to me, whether the task was created by somebody else or by me. If I create a task and assign it to somebody else, it would appear here so that I can keep track of things. I'm sorry, that was the section where I'm the secondary on the task. This is the section where if I created the task and delegated it to someone else, it would appear here. These first sections, everybody's got their own custom version of it for their situation. This next section, it does not begin with the word my. This is for higher level users like admins and company owners. And here's where you can see all the tasks in the system that are still active. So you can see how busy the company is and whether everybody's keeping up. And we also provided tasks recently completed section. So you can see with certainty that somebody has marked something off as being done. If I have a recent call or a call that's coming up, it'll appear here. So the optional feature for having team leads approve invoices results in this section, invoices for my approval. This is a job where I'm the team lead and I have to go approve the invoice. There's an additional optional feature where you can approve individual hourly and expense items. And if you have that active and I'm the team lead on a job, then I may have to come here to view the new entries and approve them or reject them. If I am the worker and my item was rejected, it would appear here. I could see the details and why it was rejected and make changes from that point. The next two sections have to do with the teams that I'm on, either as the team lead or team member. And we keep those separate because you have more responsibilities when you're the team lead than when you are the team member. For this next section, when we're looking at contacts, I mentioned the idea of someone referring business to you. And if they are marked as doing so, then they will appear here. And the date of last contact is used in order to show you the contacts where it's been the longest since you've spoken to them. So it's pretty important to stay in touch with the people who are sending you business, and this section will help you do exactly that. So you just work through this list, make sure all these dates are relatively recent, and when they are, you are done. We're now going to talk about calendaring. And one of the things that SMMware can do is use invites. And if I had any invites right now, they would appear here. And I can respond to say that, yes, I'd like to be part of it, or I can respond by saying I want to decline being part of that. Here at the bottom of the page, everybody's got their own schedule. This is it's called My Schedule because it only shows me events that I am part of, either because I am an attendee or maybe I'm the main contact. If I have permissions to see the main master calendar, then I'll have this link in the main menu. So I'm going to jump over there. And at the bottom, we've got our calendar tags. You define these for yourself. And the idea is that you can look at the calendar and tell something about a given event based on the color. And we have seen three main ways that people tend to use these tags. The simplest approach is to distinguish between a job event and a sales event. So this green is for a job. This light tan is for a sales meeting. Another approach is to distinguish between the kinds of work that are being done. So this is for packing. This is for unpacking. And then the last approach is to indicate who is going to be in charge that day. So for instance, this event is being led by Judy. And then this darker brown is being led by Carmen. And then we've got Margot's on this one. Sorry, this is the unpacking event with the dark green. When you're looking at the calendar, you can see the time that it starts and ends for a given event. You can see the client name, and you can see the initials of the employees who are going to be there. If I click on it, I can see additional detail. I can see the full names of the employees plus the times that they're going to be there. And additional details. Pick a different one. Here we go. Because I wanted to show you that you can arrange for the address to be in the event. Clicking on it takes you to a mapping function, and it gives you the turn-by-turn GPS directions from there. We'll go ahead and create a new event. We're going to say that this is going to be tied to a job. And then, of course, SMMware wants to know which job. This icon is a house with an arrow pointing out of it. And here's another house with an arrow pointing into it. So that represents where people are moving from and to. This text that was here already is something that you put in the configuration. And once again, I can get rid of some of it if I don't need it this time around. Here's where I set the main contact. When people get notifications, it will say at the bottom, here's the main contact, here's their contact information, so that way you can get in touch with them with any questions. We also have the idea of an event lead. So the team lead is somebody who's in charge across the entire job. The event lead is in charge for that particular event. We can set a couple of reminders. In the case of events, because things are so time sensitive, you can send out emails and also text messaging. Sometimes you make a small change and you don't want to bother everybody, so you can say, all right, I want to skip the notifications. You can also mark an event as tentative so that everybody understands that a particular one may or may not happen. We have 3 different ways of managing who the attendees are, and each one has its own way of thinking about things. We've got the direct approach, and here the thinking is that you had a company meeting or you're driving back in the car, and you already decided who's going to be part of this event, and you simply want to get it formalized and entered into the system. And so they just get a notification saying that you are assigned. This is not about the system helping you make any decisions. The next approach is for invites. In this case, we're going to set a team size. And there are multiple ways you can use this functionality. One approach is to say you want 3 people. Let's pick 5. And out of those 5 people, 4 of them say that they would like to do the work. 1 says they can't. And then there's going to be a final step where you pick the 3 that you want. So in this, because it's a business event, you want exactly 3 people, no more, no less. It's not like a social event where maybe you invite 10 people, 8 of them show up, and that's fine. Since this is business, we want 3 and exactly 3. Another approach we can use is the first come, first serve. So you invite everybody, and the first 3 who respond, because that's the team size, would get a message saying, okay, your request has been recorded. Everyone else will get a message saying, I'm sorry, the team is full. And another approach you can use is the multiple rounds of invitations. So let's say I've got 3 people in mind who I'd really like to do the work because they're just perfect for this particular situation. So I invite them, and then one of them says they can't do it. So I come back, I add someone else, and then they get their invitation and can respond as well. And you just do that until you have a full team. These first 2 approaches can be thought of as being client-driven because it starts with you asking the client when they want the work done. Our next approach is called availability, and you can think of this one as employee-driven. The first thing that happens, the employees go into the system, and they would say, all right, I'm not available to work Friday morning for this week. I'm not available to work next Tuesday morning, and so on. And they can mark a week if needs be. All right, so after everybody's got their information into the system and you're looking at creating a new event, you kind of come here. You'll see that there is a timeline across the top, list of employees down the left, and then I can mark somebody as being part of it and assign them a shift. And this is our most flexible approach because we can assume, or we can arrange for people to arrive and leave at different times. Let's say we want one person to arrive early and to supervise while the boxes are unloaded from the van. And then after that, we've got everybody there to do some unpacking. We also have some planning tools. This is called the availability table. And this goes out for, I think, 12 weeks. And you can see for a given day across the top, list of employees down the left. If somebody has an event, there's going to be a client name there. And then the other times are when they're free. I'd also mention that when you click on a row, it goes up to the top. The thinking is that you are going to have a long list of employees, and some of them you want to gather together into a team, and you can click on them, push them up to the top as a way of reviewing them to make sure that, yes, this is the people that I want for the team. If somebody is qualified to be an event lead, their name will be in red. So that's why Sally is colored red. So this is our tool for helping you plan your events. And when we're looking at the profiles for the employees, I didn't mention it, but there's a place to define some skills. So this is a shorthand that you define for yourself. In this case, the P stands for packing, the S is for sorting, O is for organizing, and you're going to give somebody a rating for those different skill levels. The employee themselves won't see it, so you don't have to worry about arguing with people about how good they may or may not be for a given skill. But it does appear when you are creating an event, so you can take that into account in deciding who should attend. And the definition that you gave to yourself for the skill codes, you can click on this button and it'll pop up from the configuration editor. You can remind yourself exactly what you meant by a given abbreviation. All right, so that is our scheduling approach. It's time to talk about integrations. So now we're looking at the tan area. SMMware can integrate directly with MailChimp. And when you are adding a new client, you will, if you put in the email address, then SMMware will copy that over to MailChimp. If you're not familiar with MailChimp, it is a mass emailing tool so that you can create templates. You'll have a list of recipients, and you can send out a mass email. So by integrating SMMware with MailChimp, you can arrange for the lists to already be synchronized for the recipients. That way you can concentrate strictly on the exact wording of the email and maybe a subset. So SMMware assigns tags to the clients. Maybe clients are current clients, past clients, or potential clients. And then when you're in MailChimp, you can use that information to send it to only a subset of the list. Maybe you only want to email past clients. SMMware, when you're integrated with MailChimp, SMMware can also upload your organizations, or excuse me, your contacts. And your contacts will get a tag that matches their category. So it could be lawyer, real estate. And that way, if you ever want to send out an email just to the real estate contacts, just to the lawyers that you know, you can do that through MailChimp. If you are not using MailChimp, let's say you're using Constant Contact and SMMware doesn't have a direct integration with it, we have an integration with Zapier, which is kind of middleware. So in that case, let's say you want to work with Constant Contact, you can arrange for SMMware to let Zapier know about the new contact, and then Zapier will tell Constant Contact and let you work from there. So again, Zapier is middleware that allows you to work with organization or programs that SMMware may not speak directly to. It's also worth pointing out that we have a search bar here in the middle, and that the results are broken into the ones coming from client records, your organizations, your contacts, and possibly the employees. So this way, if you're looking at Jane Doe, you don't have to worry about if this is Jane Doe the client or Jane Doe the contact. It'll be in the appropriate section. We can also take a little look at the settings editor. And the point here is that we have a fair number of sections where you can tweak SMMware. Here's the calendar section. And each one of these sections in turn has quite a few different things that you can change. So I opened up all the different panels. You can see that there's quite a few options. Going back to our integrations, the next one to talk about is QuickBooks. SMMware can integrate with both QuickBooks Online and Desktop. When you are integrated with QuickBooks and a record has already been synchronized with QuickBooks, it'll have this small green QB icon. And if they are not already copied over, you'll have a button that says, in this case, QBO add, because it's integrated with QuickBooks Online. From here, I'll talk a little bit about what it's like to start with SMMware. I'm going over to the corporate website. A subscription to SMMware is defined in terms of how many active users you have. And here you can see the different pricing levels. And you can see that it goes up very minimally as you go up in terms of more users. An active user is somebody who's currently able to log into the system. You can mark somebody as inactive. That way their record will stay in the system, but they wouldn't be able to log in. So maybe have seasonal people where that would be useful. When you are signing up for SMMware, you want a site prefix. The demo site that I'm using for you is demo.smware.com. And you might use your company's abbreviated name as your prefix, so like abc.smware.com. Just like to explain that so you understand what you're creating when you enter something there. SMMware doesn't have any annual commitments, and we have a 30-day free trial. We have no setup fees as well. And then from here, we'll talk a little bit about how you can learn more as you get to know SMMware. We'll start off here within SMMware again, and we have the in-app help, and it's context sensitive. And then next we have our online manuals. You can see them as web pages or as PDFs. We have manuals for the administrators, team leads, and team members. And we also have our YouTube channel. It's simply youtube.com/SMMware. Kirsten, thanks for joining us. And we're just wrapping up anyway. So if you have to go, by all means, go ahead and take off. A recording of this will be posted to our website as well. So again, this is the YouTube channel. We have about 30 videos here, some of which are overviews and some of which are shorter, detail-oriented items. And here along the right-hand side, you can see all the different videos we have. Here's one for clients and jobs. Here's one for time and expense entry, and so on. And then coming back to the corporate website, back in our webinars and training session, if you want that personal touch, we have Liz Donovan, who is here on the session with us, and she is our trainer extraordinaire. Her information is down here, both phone number and email. So if you need somebody who is going to sit down with you and help plan out all the different things that I talked about that SMMware can customize, if you want somebody to walk you through where you want to click in order to do certain things, Liz can definitely help you out with that. We distinguish between training and support. So if you want somebody to have that longer session with you, that's training. If you're used to the system and you just have that one question that needs a quick answer, then that's more like support. And then you would contact me directly. And then the support is complimentary. So that is a pretty good introduction to SMMware. I'd be happy to take any questions anybody have. This webinar will be posted here under pricing and sign up, webinars and training. So if you want to review anything that we talked about today, you can find it here. So again, if anybody has any questions, happy to talk to them now. Otherwise, you can get in touch with me at a later date, and I'd be happy to talk to you as well. So I think we're about ready to wrap up, and I hope that everybody has a great day, and thanks for joining me. Bye now.